Do you know how to read the labels so that you know what you are actually buying and what you eat? What are the tricks that the marketers are playing on us? And are you the victim of the industry? That's what you are going to learn just in this video. We are going to talk about the first three ingredients on the food label that you should pay attention to. And we will also talk about how many carbohydrates, fat, and protein you should eat per day and how to, of course, combine it all together. So you already know what are carbohydrates, and that sometimes when I say sugar or glucose or carbohydrates, it actually is a similar thing because we talk about the glucose, the single molecule that gets into the bloodstream and is spiking the hormone insulin, that we'll talk about later on, and that is causing all the inflammation, mood swings, belly fat, and then the energy low. So, what are actually the manipulations by the food industry? The first one is that they found the sweet spot, something that gets us hooked on, and something that we are going to buy over and over again. They do not want us to feel totally sick of the food. That's why they are playing with the amount of sugar and fat together. Because if you look at Mother Nature, what it gave us, nothing in the nature is a combination of sugar or fat. Look at avocado. Avocado is just pure fat, vitamins, minerals, fiber, and water. Apple is fiber, water, and sugar, but there is no fat. So you see that if you eat it separately, it does not satisfy you so much. And the same, for example, you can see if I tell you to eat cup of sugar powder, taking it by spoon, you're not going to enjoy it. It's going to be super sweet. If I tell you to drink a glass of pure cream that is unsweetened, that will be so fatty and so disgusting, then you will say, no, I don't want it. But if I mix it together and I make a whipped cream, the taste is suddenly amazing. And if I freeze it and make ice cream from that, you will eat it without any problem and you wouldn't even think that it's so sweet because freezing it actually decreases the sensation of the sugar. So the only product in the nature that you find has the combination of sugar, lactose, and fat is the breast milk. And this is for the reason we need our baby to grow. We need the offsprings, the animals to grow. So we need them to be hooked on the mother's milk and go for it over and over again and put the weight on. Yeah, so there are even hormones in that helps them to grow. We don't need it as adults. So what the sweet spot does is that it creates hunger. You will have higher appetite and you will go for more. Also, the food industry approved 100,000 chemicals that the science even doesn't know what is the actual impact on our health. And remember, microbiota, so it's the good and bad bacteria that live in our intestine, it's 30 trillion of bacteria living in us, which is 10 times more bacteria than cells in our body. And they also produce hormones. They produce also energy. They produce serotonin, the happy hormone. 70% of that is created by the microbiota in our intestine. So it is very important to pay attention to what we feed them so that in turn they can be beneficial to us rather than causing the harm. So we are going to look at what we actually need, what our human body in these conditions with the lifestyle that we have and with the age, what we actually need. And that is around 180 grams of carbohydrates up to 120 grams of carbohydrates. This also depends on the physical activity you have, on your age group, on your lifestyle. But in general, if you, for example, want to lose weight because you have a belly fat, you would want to, at the start, stick to 80 grams of carbohydrates. Of course, if you cut down carbohydrates, what are you going to eat? So you need to eat protein because protein makes you feel full. So we need around 1 gram of protein for every kilo of our body weight. So 1 gram is for somebody who is not athletic, who just has a sedentary lifestyle. Yeah? If you are exercising, if you are training for the marathon, you would need up to 2 grams of protein per every kilo of your body weight. So let's say that you are a woman that has 60 kilos. So you would need 60 grams of protein. And we are going to look at what 60 grams of protein look like. Then, you know that I'm not promoting any diets. I don't promote ketogenic diet, Atkinson's diet. No, everything should be balanced. And therefore, when we talk about the fat, I recommend only 30 grams of fat per day in case you want to lose fat. If you would go on a ketogenic diet, because it's your choice, because that's what you want to keep and stick to and sustain, and you believe it is sustainable for you, you would take 70% of your daily intake from fat, and then you would cut the carbohydrates to minimum 20 grams, maximum 30 grams. Yeah. And protein you would keep the same. And then you need 25 grams of fiber, which is around 7 to 10 portions of vegetable. So let's look at the tricks that the marketers are playing on us and how you should actually learn to read the labels. So Nutella. It's actually one of the ingredients that children love and even adults eat. But look at it. The ingredient number 1 is sugar. Number 2 is palm oil. And only 13% of the whole jar is hazelnuts. So even though the picture looks like it's a milk and it's hazelnuts, that is basically pure sugar. And we have there only 7.5% of cocoa powder, and it's actually fat reduced, which makes no sense. Why did they make it fat reduced and then put there the palm oil, which is fat, number 2 ingredient? So no sense. And then there is vanillin, which is a synthetic version of vanilla. It's just the flavor, synthetic flavor of the vanilla, because they don't even want to invest into real vanilla pots. So Nutella is an absolute no-go. If you still love Nutella, I would probably recommend nocciolata, which is Italian version. It's organic, and of course it's still high in sugar, but I believe that number 1 ingredient is not sugar. Then what's very surprising is chicken stock. So you would think that chicken stock should be about chicken, but I calculated 4 different kind of sugar. So if you printed the list of 60 different sugars, you will find there maltodextrin, caramel syrup, sugar and starch. Starch is a source, is basically storage of sugar, glucose in plants, especially the plants that are growing under the soil, beetroot, potatoes, parsnip, because they need to store the energy so that they can grow up. Yeah, so starch is basically just pure white powder from vegetable. So number 1 ingredient in this cube is salt, which means that at least 70% of the cube is salt. Then there is sugar, then there is fat, and only 3%, which is a very small amount, is a chicken fat. Yeah, so chicken fat is 3% and chicken flavoring is 1% later on. That is not sufficient. It's probably better to buy a real chicken stock in a glass, and I can recommend a brand, or you can make your own one. So you just buy a full Chicken, you boil it for 3 hours, then you peel the meat out of it, you can reuse it, strain it, and you have a lovely chicken stock that is actually high in collagen and it's high in L-glutamine, which is healing the intestine. So especially for those ones that are suffering with bloating, irritable bowel syndrome, or any autoimmune disease, homemade chicken stock is absolutely fantastic for them. Let's look at some chocolates. I love chocolate and I eat chocolate nearly every day, 95% chocolate, which means it's real cocoa mass, cocoa butter, and then there's only 5% of sugar. That is nothing in a whole bar. And here I have chosen, this is a raw cacao, raw chocolate, which is actually high in antioxidants, but it's still sweet. So it's 85%, and then there is a natural sugar, still sugar from dates. But look at the ingredients and look at the amount of carbohydrates. But this is in 100 grams. You are not going to eat 100 grams of this chocolate. Maybe you will eat only 20 grams, which is 2 squares. Maybe you are like me, you will eat half of the bar, therefore 40 grams or 50 grams. But still, even if you eat half of this chocolate bar, you will consume only 15 grams of carbohydrates. That is not bad, from which is going to be around 8 grams of carbohydrates, the sugar. Because yes, even here, ingredients number 1, 2, 3, so ingredients number 3 is a coconut blossom sugar, and then we have here even dates. So that's the pure sugar that gets into our bloodstream. Look at the other picture. So this is a vegan, looks very healthy chocolate. But look at the amount of carbohydrates and let's look at the ingredients. So the ingredient number 1 is actually raw sugar. That's horrible. Then number 2 is a cocoa butter, rice drink powder, which is made from rice syrup, sugar, concentrated glucose. And then we have there maybe some like other sugar somewhere else. No, it's not. But look at the pure sugar, so the simple sugar, 47 grams compared to 16 grams. So that's why I want you to check your cupboards and look at what you are actually buying. Maybe you are buying even these tiny chocolate milk eggs, and you don't know in that small portion how much sugar you actually consume. Then let's look, for example, for vegans, they usually go for the option of the oat yogurt or soya yogurt. So here I have chosen the small oat yogurt, but look at that, 17 grams and from it 11 grams of pure sugar. So 11 grams of pure sugar, it's 2 spoons of sugar. That is a lot in one small pot. So you would think, wow, I'm starting the day with this healthy yogurt. But as the first thing, you're spiking the insulin up, bringing the blood glucose levels up just by eating this one small yogurt. You can as well eat half of the chocolate and consume less, because as we said, it's 8 grams of pure sugar in half of the bar of the chocolate compared to one yogurt. But now look at this power mix. I have to admit that I used to be the basically hooked on this power mix bar, and I was thinking that it was a healthy option until I learned to read the labels. So this small bar that is basically nuts and raisins has 54 grams of carbohydrate, from which 42 grams is pure sugar. So basically, by having this healthy snack, I ate nearly the whole amount of carbohydrates that my body needs per day. That is shocking, isn't it? So not everything that seems to be healthy is actually healthy for us, because just because it's natural sugar dry fruit is actually concentrated sugar because the raisins are very small and eating one handful of raisins is not so difficult. But would you eat the whole massive grape of grapes? You are not, because that would be way. Let's look at quite a healthy option, which is pasta from yellow lentils. So I just want to say that in nature, there are no yellow lentils, neither red lentils. That is actually peeled. So that is, so for example, the red lentils, it's a brown lentil, but peeled. And that's why it's easier to digest. And that's easier to get the sugar out of it into the bloodstream as well, because there is not that much fiber. So it is a healthy option, but still, look, it has 59 grams of carbohydrates in 100 grams. So let's say this is 300 grams, so that would be 3 portions, so 59 grams. So if you have it for lunch, it's probably okay if you combine it with vegetable and with protein, even though it's quite high in protein. So in 100 grams, it has 22 grams of protein, and that is a sufficient amount for vegans, vegetarians. So I would probably still recommend this product if you like the taste of it. But equally, you can just eat lentils and you will be fine. Let's look at the almonds. So I love eating almonds, and I want to show you that almonds are actually very low in carbohydrates. So even if you eat 100 grams of almonds, which means 2 full handfuls of almonds, that's quite a lot, it's around 40 almonds. You will consume only 5.7 grams of carbohydrates, and it has 24 grams of protein, which is quite high in protein, and of course it's high in fat. So it says it's high in calories, obviously it's high in calories, but you are not going to actually absorb all the calories. Then let's look at this marketing trick. And I was really disappointed because many years ago, I was thinking that these crunchy breads are actually very good for diet. I was completely wrong, because if you look at the ingredient list, that's fall corn, so whole wheat, rice flour. And we know that rice is basically high in carbohydrates. So even though they call it quinoa, there is only 40% of quinoa, which means 60% is rice. I find this really bad marketing trick. And then also look, there is sugar. And you can see that because of that, it's quite high in carbohydrates. So 100 grams, which would be half of this package, is 77 grams of carbohydrates. That is a lot, because if you remember, we said that maybe you want to stick to 80 grams of carbohydrates per day. And just by eating half of this package, maybe as a snack, you would complete your daily dose. So it's not a product that you would want to choose. And then I, for example, like these buckwheat and sweet potato noodles. I buy them, I have them at home, but I am aware of when to eat them and how much. So if I'm going to exercise, if I'm going to be really active all day, I'll probably eat them. If I'm on Zoom meetings all day long and I'm not going to move, I'm not going to eat these noodles. So the packaging is actually amazing. If you are a single person or you just prepare the lunch for yourself, it's 3 individual packagings, and it's really absolutely clear on what is the ingredients. So it's a buckwheat flour, and then there is a sweet potato flour, which is basically starch that is holding the noodles together, and then there's only water. But this one tiny portion, which is 80 grams, has 66 grams of carbohydrates, from which 11 grams is sugar. So it's from the sweet potato, obviously the starch. So it's 2 spoons of sugar. Carbohydrates. We said we need around 80 grams of carbohydrates if we don't exercise or if we don't do intermittent fasting. So what does it look like actually, the 80 grams of carbohydrates? So let's say that apple has 15 grams. A handful of rice, cooked rice, handful of cooked rice has 30 grams. 2 buckwheat pancakes, my favorite, 30 grams, and small yogurt, 5 grams. So with this, you would get to 80 grams of carbohydrates. And I really recommend visiting this website. It's a downshiftology. This lady, she has a celiac disease. Therefore, all of her recipes are gluten-free and actually even dairy-free. She is amazing at doing quick recipes because she doesn't really like cooking. She doesn't want to spend too much time in the kitchen, and she's really well organized. So she is cooking only twice a week, and she has everything prepared. So it's batch cooking. For inspiration, she has amazing videos, and I will be showing her recipes as well. And then I will be using recipes from the functional medicine cookbook because I am a functional medicine practitioner. What does it mean? It means that I am a science-based nutritionist, but I am looking at the holistic health. So that's the functional medicine approach and even the cookbook. How much protein? So we calculated that we need 1 gram of protein for every kilo of the body weight. So let's say that we think about a woman that has 60 kilos and she needs 60 grams of protein. So 200 grams of quark, skyr, fromage frais, twaroh, not yogurt and not kefir because they have more water than protein. So that has probably around 20 grams of protein. If you are a meat eater, then maybe 150 grams of meat is 20 grams of protein. 100 grams of sardines, which is my favorite fish, is 18 grams of protein. It's really high. Or for example, even seafood. If you take 6 shrimps, it's 18 grams of protein as well. So it's very easy to load yourself with the protein. 2 eggs, it's 12 grams of protein. Each egg is usually around 6 grams if you take the medium size. And vegan sources of protein. So, of course, for vegans, it's more complicated to get the full spectrum of all the amino acids. So it's 23 amino acids. Some of them are essential for our body because our body cannot make it. And of course, the easiest source is from animals. And therefore, for vegans to get these proteins, it must be either from a pea protein powder or it needs to be from some mixtures made special for vegans, but make sure that there is no sugar. Or, for example, 100 grams of tofu will give you 15 grams of protein, but of course, it's not a full source of protein. And handful of almonds, it's around 6 grams. So we said handful is like around 40 grams of almonds. It's around 10 to 20 almonds. This is very difficult to say because a large person, like big man with 2 meters, might have a massive hand, and his handful is completely different from my handful. And then we look at fat. So we said it's around 30 grams of fat per day, which would be like 2 spoons of a coconut oil. It would be 1 avocado. It would be handful of nuts. It would be 2 spoons of tahini or almond butter or peanut butter that you can take. Yeah. And remember, you can combine fat with protein, but don't combine it with carbohydrates, because what happens, the hormone insulin that we will explore in next week is actually going to spike insulin, and insulin is a fat maker, and then it's going to take all that fat and all that protein and all that carbohydrates and store it as a fat in your abdominal area. That's why you need to make sure that, for example, if you have pasta, you are not going to make it with a creamy sauce, or you are not going to put avocado on the toast, even though it's recommended everywhere. If you want to lose weight, that's not what you want to do. You maybe want to have a scrambled egg with cheese and avocado and some vegetable, but definitely not toast. Ice cream I mentioned to you because it's a combination really of fat and sugar. And actually, more fat and more sugar the ice cream has, easier it is to scoop it. So sometimes when you are in Italy and they have this easy scooping ice cream, that is really fatty. Because if you try to make it just with milk and you put it into the freezer, if you tried your homemade ice cream, that was hard as a rock because it wasn't made from the cream and because you probably didn't put there enough sugar. And sometimes people say, I don't eat any sugar, but fried chips or starchy vegetable, if you are roasting beetroot, roasting potatoes in the evening, that is basically starch, sugar combined with fat. That's why it tastes so great, because it caramelizes and it brings all that sugar up. So, what do I want you to do now? Begin with the end in mind. So, what is it that you want to change in the terms of health and well being? Do you want to lose fat? Do you want to rebalance your hormones? Do you want to improve your stamina? Do you want to have focus and concentration back to what it used to be? Do you want to have a better sleep? So, what is it? Because you need to start with why. So, first, what you want to change, why you want to do it, and then how. Yeah, so you need to know these three things. So, awareness is the first thing, and that's what I'm doing here for you. So, by reviewing the labels, this is not to judge anybody or make you feel bad. This is just purely to bring the awareness to what you eat, the fuel that you are giving to your body and your bacteria that are supposed to work for you, and cells that are supposed to produce the energy. So, if you are giving them French fries, it's going to make probably your body just tired. It will create the inflammation. That is not the food that can fuel your cells. Acceptance. You want to accept this fact that, okay, maybe you went somewhere wrong and now you have the key of how to repair it, because I gave you the step-by-step plan and action. You want to take action, and everybody is different. I don't recommend to take action absolutely everywhere, saying, okay, from now on, I'm going to stop totally with sugar or totally with carbohydrates, because you would most probably have ketogenic flu because you wouldn't consume any carbohydrates. Maybe your body is still not working as this hybrid car. You are not able to switch in between different sources of the energy. So it's better to take small steps. First, remove the simple carbohydrates for 1 week, then maybe cut on the carbohydrates, then maybe adjust what you eat for dinner, and so on. And that's what we are going to discuss in more details. So let's recap. What did you learn? So you learned how to read the labels, to look at the first three ingredients on the packaging and also on the rest. Do you know what that means? What is E112? What are all the stabilizers? What are all the fillers? What are all the antioxidants? Why is it there? Do you know it? If not, then just don't eat it. What are the marketing tricks? So now you know they want to find the sweet spot. So obviously the best for you is to prepare the food on your own. Or imagine that you are going to the farmer, you are on the field. Would you find their French fries? No, you wouldn't. Would you find their biscuits? No, you wouldn't. You have to buy only ingredients that you would find in the farm. And you can download the Eat Clean, Get Lean shopping list with all the 12 videos that are walking you through the sections. So when you go next time to the supermarket, you know exactly what to buy and why, and how much of your body actually needs. So you also learn that maybe if you are eating 150 grams of carbohydrates and then you wonder why you are actually putting the weight on, now you know that your body needs maybe only 80 or maybe only 60 if you are smaller, and that everything that you were consuming until now was a surplus and that your body was saving it for later, the later that never actually comes. So I am curious to find out, what action are you going to take today? Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4 steps? Let me know.